So the release of Matrix Resurrections is coming closer and closer. By the time this video should go up, we'll only have 5 days left. It only recently dawned on me that this movie is actually happening. Like, I've just gotten so used to certain movies, especially ones being released by Warner Bros., to just get delayed to the point of cancellation. So it feels kind of surreal that I'm this close to actually seeing this movie. In order to prepare for the film, my dad decided to show me the Matrix sequels, Reloaded and Revolutions, which I somehow had not seen up until a few weeks ago, despite being a pretty big fan of the original. Like, it's probably in my top 20 favorite movies of all time. Although I can kind of understand why he might be kind of hesitant to show them to me because, like, they've gained a really negative reputation over the years. But a few weeks ago, we decided to take a stab at watching both of them. It took so long because the way me and my dad watch movies together is by watching the first half, waiting a week until our next available movie night, and then watching the next half. And that resulted in it taking us 4 weeks to watch both films in their entirety. But what did I think of the Matrix sequels? Honestly, I was pleasantly surprised. Like, they were actually kinda good. Now, don't get me wrong, they still pale in comparison to the original, but despite that, I still think that they're both good films. I just felt the need to point that out because the rest of the video will be spent criticizing them, but you can in fact like something while acknowledging that it has flaws. I was originally going to make this video about both of them, but I realized that not only would that make the video too long, but it also wouldn't really fit with the way that I planned on structuring this video. So this video will just be spent looking at Reloaded. With all that preamble out of the way, let's get into reviewing Matrix Reloaded. In my opinion, there are 5 major problems with Matrix Reloaded. Let's talk about the first one. Okay, admittedly, this is a problem with all of the Matrix movies that even I had with the original. Neo is just not an interesting character in the slightest. I don't even blame Keanu because I've seen him act well. He just has nothing to work with because Neo is so bland and has no interesting personality traits. But in this film, it's especially egregious because there was the perfect opportunity to give Neo an actual arc that felt like it was set up early on, but never got paid off. Let me explain. So early on in the movie, when Neo and Trinity return to Zion, Neo tries to hang out with Trinity, but gets interrupted by the citizens coming to thank him. I expected that this would set up some sort of moral dilemma for him, where he has to learn to appreciate the people of Zion more, and not just Trinity. In fact, there was a perfect opportunity to pay off this arc at the end, and I am baffled that they didn't go through with it. When Neo confronts the architect at the end of the movie, he gives him a choice between going to the source and picking a group of survivors to repopulate Zion with when the Matrix gets rebooted, or not doing that and allowing the Matrix to crash, which would potentially kill everyone connected to it. Guess which one Neo chooses. Just take a wild guess. He allows the Matrix to crash specifically in order to save Trinity, who is currently falling from a building and got shot by an agent. Why did they do this? I mean, I know that the Matrix didn't actually end up crashing and killing everyone, but I feel like that's mostly because Agent Smith had already possessed, like, the entire population of the Matrix, and that had nothing to do with anything Neo did. This would be the perfect way to pay off Neo's dilemma and give him an actual character development. But instead, they just went with the equally thought-provoking ending of having Neo bring back Trinity to life by pulling a bullet out of her and massaging her heart. Yes, really. And that leads perfectly on to the next problem, that damn ending. Yeah, I'm not kidding. Neo saves Trinity from dying by gunshot wound by pulling the bullet out of her chest and massaging her heart to defibrillate her. I can't even put into words how ridiculous this is. I remember shouting, "What?" to the screen as I first watched this happen. Not only that, but Neo didn't know that Agent Smith had already effectively killed most of the Matrix, so in this moment, he thought he gambled the lives of billions of people plugged into the Matrix by going after Trinity. I'm not saying that giving in to the architect was 100% the right thing to do, but I am saying that it would be the more sane option between that and giving in to his hard-on for Trinity. This is a ridiculous ending to an otherwise alright movie. Problem number 3. Agent Smith does nothing. If you go on Agent Smith's page on the Villains Wiki, he is listed as the main antagonist of the entire Matrix trilogy. And since there's no qualifiers for the individual films, then that means he is the main antagonist of this movie too. But the thing is, despite technically being the main antagonist, he has absolutely nothing to do with the plot. He shows up right at the beginning of the film to send Neo a message, has an admittedly pretty cool fight scene with him a little bit later on, and then shows up right at the end before Neo confronts the architect and kills the Keymaker before suddenly disappearing. That's it. He's not even the one who shoots Trinity. That was Agent Johnson, who I bet the majority of you forgot the name of. Now, in order for me to consider someone the main antagonist of a film, they have to be the one that the heroes are seeking to defeat for most of it. For example, in Black Panther, although the beginning of the movie sees the heroes fighting Claw, at the end it sees them fighting Killmonger. Killmonger is still the main antagonist because Claw is working for him, so the heroes are still fighting Killmonger by proxy. But in this movie, Smith is just like a free agent who is explicitly not working for the machines anymore. Neo and friends just are still trying to take down the machines, with Smith just occasionally showing up to do stuff that doesn't impact the plot. As much as I like the part where Neo fights all the Smith clones, it has absolutely no effect on the overall plot whatsoever, and it felt like they just needed to establish that Smith is taking over the Matrix for the end of the third movie. But hey, at least the fight scenes were good, right? Right? It's time we talk about... Okay, so I'm not usually the one to rag on dated special effects. Or maybe I am. Maybe someone in the comments will go back to my older videos and pull up every time I've ever complained about CG in movies. But the thing is, I know that making a movie is an incredibly difficult process with so many creatives involved that all want to achieve their own vision. But it just boggles my mind how much the original Matrix, which was released 4 years earlier, looks so much better than Reloaded. And also, how this movie was released in the same year as Finding Nemo, a movie with revolutionary animation that honestly still holds up today. But there are some parts of this movie, like when Neo starts flying after the clone fight, that just make the characters look like rubber. And again, no shade to the Wachowskis or the animators. This just struck me as an odd example about how this movie seems to be like a step down in the original in pretty much every way, despite coming out 4 years later. One issue that I've seen mentioned with both Matrix sequels as a whole is how they deconstructed the philosophy of the original film. But I personally don't really have a problem with that. I honestly felt like the philosophical stuff could have really added to the film if they just delivered it properly. But the problem is that unlike the original, they just had characters deliver long expositional speeches about the philosophy rather than trying to find clever and interesting ways to deliver it to us. In the scene where Neo was talking to the Oracle before the Agent Smith fight, I almost fell asleep. I didn't actually end up falling asleep, but I was definitely fighting to stay awake. That's not a joke. The same thing happened later in the scene with the architect. And I actually did fall asleep during Revolutions in a scene that I will definitely mention if I ever make a video about it. But I watched the first Matrix movie on New Year's Eve at 11 p.m. and I was never even close to falling asleep. As a whole, Matrix Reloaded is just dumb fun that thinks it's smart. It's not awful, but it was a step down from the original in pretty much every conceivable way. That being said, I am still super excited for Resurrections. I'm very curious about where they take this story. And if this video does well, and maybe even if it doesn't, I'll make a video reviewing Revolutions. And I should probably mention to anyone who might be curious that I do plan on reviewing Spider-Man No Way Home, but chances are I'm not going to be able to watch it for at least a week until after it's released, so Yeah, it's probably gonna be like past topical by the time I start reviewing it. But maybe I'm thinking about maybe doing like a package review in January with it for it, along with Hawkeye and Eternals, both of which I never got around to reviewing before they stopped being topical. But I'll see you guys next time for whatever I end up making.